All right, everybody, we're going to pick up with part 2 of chapters 25 and 26. I had a little technical difficulties in the last video, but we will finish up now. Okay, so to recap, beginning of chapter 26, it's less than a page long. Here is I'm cut out a little bit, but here's most of the end of chapter 26. Holden says, "That's all I'm going to tell about. I could probably tell you what I did after I went home and how I got sick and all, and what school I'm supposed to go to next fall after I get out of here. But I don't feel like it. I really don't. That stuff doesn't interest me too much right now. A lot of people, especially this one psychoanalyst guy they've got here, keeps asking me if I'm going to apply myself when I go back to school next September. Such a stupid question in my opinion. I mean, how do you know what you're going to do till you do it? The answer is you don't. I think I am, but how do I know? I swear to God, it's a stupid question." So, where is he? He's trying to get out of here, trying to get out of here. Where is here? Here is a place with lots of psychoanalysts. So what does that tell us? That Holden is currently in a mental health facility. Holden's currently in a mental health facility. We can assume that after this whole carousel scene, that Holden had some sort of mental breakdown, had some sort of nervous breakdown, and so he goes to a mental health institution, a mental health facility, to help him try and recover, try to come to terms with what's happened to him. And so he can't. So he's here, and he's stuck here in this place, and now this is where he is. So the whole book has been one long letter in his journal to himself or to his psychoanalyst. This is a version and sort of a part of his therapy, is journaling. This journaling that he's doing, that's part of his therapy, that is something that he has done to sort of help him sort of figure out what's wrong with him and help the psychoanalysts that he's working with, the therapists that he's working with, help him. So he's currently in a mental institution after a mental breakdown. We'll talk about what that means in a second. Then, I love his last lines. He says, "I'm sorry I told so many people about it. All I know is I sort of miss everybody I told about it. Even old Stradlater and Ackley, for instance. I think I even miss that goddamn Maurice. It's funny. Don't ever tell anybody anything. If you do, you start missing everybody." Wow. So why is this important? Because Holden feels nostalgic for this whole experience. Holden feels nostalgic for this entire experience, this whole thing that he's done. Even though this was, I think, he could categorize as one of the worst times in his life, he still feels as though he misses part of it. So what's finally revealed about Holden? Holden is in a mental health facility to help him with a nervous or breakdown that he has had. And then, our question, does the setting and the current situation change your view of the narration? The fact that you know he is telling us this all in the past from the setting of the mental institution, does that change our sympathies for him? Does this change our sympathies for him? Do we feel better? Do we feel worse? How do we feel about Holden here at the end? Now, I have a bunch of other questions I want you guys to think about, because we'll think about what this means back on our chapter review presentation. We have our closing sort of overarching questions. What are the big sort of things we want to ask about Holden right now that we know this final fact about him? First question, what is the source of Holden's behavior? Is it Allie's death? Is it society? Is it his mental illness? Is it just his laziness? Some people categorize him as just being generally kind of lazy. His lack of ability to adapt. Does Holden not know how to adapt to the world around him? Is that really his problem? Is that his struggle? Another big question we need to think about. Why does Holden feel so alienated? Holden feels so alone. Even though everyone in the world keeps telling him he's not alone, Holden believes he is incredibly alone. Why does Holden feel so alienated? And our last question that I want you guys to think about is, what will Holden's future be like? If you were to imagine him in 30 years from now, what would Holden be doing? Where would Holden be? Would Holden be a normal guy out on the streets doing his normal stuff, or do you think Holden would still be struggling with these issues? These are just some things to think about as we think about why we read this and sort of what this book means in general. The thing we do know about this book is that it's incredibly personal, being a confessional. We'll go back to this for a minute. Being a confessional type of literature, this whole thing is essentially one long confession of personal anxiety, or I say a personal crisis. That makes this feel incredibly personal and connected to Holden. This is a confessional thing where he's telling us the innermost thoughts of his life. These are incredibly intimate things that he tells us, his inner thoughts and feelings. What does this make us think about? It makes us build a connection between ourselves and the literature that we read. This type of confession, we've all felt this way that Holden feels now. If you don't, you may feel like Holden does one day. So one thing I want you to think about is, what is the personal connection we have to literature, and how can this type of writing, literature, expression, how can this help us deal with the problems that we face mentally in society and, problems we have ourselves? Okay, that's all, and I will see you guys back in class.